How many women have to turn up dead in alleys for people to finally care that there is an active serial killer in Chicago? For over 2 decades, the south and west sides of Chicago have been enduring beyond heartbreaking and traumatic events, yet they have not been making headlines. There have been over 51 women murdered, their bodies dumped in alleys and vacant lots or set on fire. These victims have almost all been women of color. The Murder Accountability Project states that more than 3/4 of these women were African American. The term serial killer typically tends to make big news, but these women are not having their stories told the way Caucasian victims do. Claiming there is a lack of information on these women is an understatement. They seem to be nothing more than a police report. You can find their cause of death, but you can't find out about who they were when they were alive. The docuseries, The Chicago 51, dives deep into telling the stories of these women and explains why there is not much information about them. The 24-year-old Jacob Pachinski, producer, director, and editor of the series, describes how he started the project and what drew him to the story. I remember seeing a headline about one of the women who were murdered, and after reading more about her and the other women that were potentially murdered by the same person, I couldn't believe more people weren't talking about this, said Pachinski. Pachinski says that he sees storytelling as a form of social justice by amplifying his voice for good in the most authentic way possible. He explains that his motivation to take on this project was that he felt he had a responsibility to help. He says people should be able to feel for those being neglected by the justice system. When asked what he learned from taking on this project, Pachinski explains he believes there is a serial killer in Chicago and the justice system is failing people of color. I think this was yet another example of how our different systems and institutions serve people with varying identities in inequitable ways, said Pachinski. For his docuseries, Pachinski was able to get an interview with the rooftop pastor, Corey Brooks. Brooks camped out for 90 days on the roof of a motel known for prostitution and violence in order to bring attention to the issue and got the motel torn down. He interviewed Ricardo Holyfield, the cousin of Rio Renee Holyfield, one of the 51 murdered women. He interviewed former interim CPD Superintendent John Escalante and Thomas Hargrove, founder of the Murder Accountability Project. He also interviewed the founder of Violence Interrupters, Mr. Ceasefire, Tio Hardiman, who has spoken out to advocate and bring attention to these murders. For the series' last episode, he spoke with Loyola criminology professor Brandy Vigil, who discussed that the idea that the term serial killer brings intrigue to the story, for the real perpetrator here is systemic racism. The series ran 6 episodes, and Jacob Pachinski was able to capture some truly intense and informative interviews. Even though he was able to get Ricardo Holyfield to speak on his cousin's behalf, it's extremely tough to find family members of these women to talk about their losses. People need to continue to talk about this and bring attention to the systemic racism that's so ever-present in Chicago's south and west sides. It is important to bring the killer to justice so the murders stop, but it's also crucial that the victims get the coverage and attention that they deserve.